Here's a little utilitrack secret. Check this out. 1 inch one inch angle iron, 1/8 inch wall is the exact same size as the inside of the utilitrack. My Nissan Frontier. I forget if the type was the same or not, but take these earplugs off. Just trying to make some brackets for my rack that mimic this. These wheels, because this thing fits in here really nice with a flexible bolt. So trying to make something that fits inside here, and just stumble across a little secret. The angle iron. I was trying to find a piece of square aluminum or steel that would fit in there nicely. Just stumbled on this angle iron that fits. Welded it on there. Got a mounting point for the rack. Perfect. Alright, so here's my idea for my mounting system. I'm going to have 4 pieces of 1-inch angle iron, 1/8 inch wall, 7 inches long. I'm using some 10mm bolts, and I'm using some 3/4 inch, I think that's 3/16. It's actually some old galvanized fence reinforcement steel. Cut those 1 inch long. Those just give me just the right height to bump that up. I tried 1 inch and I tried a 1/2 inch. 3/4 inch is perfect, just to kind of gap it up. So my idea is, this is the utilitrack that goes on the bed rail. The idea here is, picture the upright here. Thinking about doing 2 uprights now, or maybe 1 upright and then like a 45-degree. Something to keep the thing from, bending at the base. Just a little reinforcement of some sort. So, haven't figured that out yet. But this is basically going to mimic this style mount. I've experimented with all different bolts, like some old 10mm kind of a lug nut. These are from the axles. These body mounts, old bed mounts, it's like an old hard body. These are almost perfect. Just gotta trim them down and weld them on, but they're just a hair too big, and there's not enough thread. But 10mm is perfect size. And I had some old, I don't even know where. Oh, I think these are on the torsion bars or something. On the front suspension on D21s, these little bolts, like class 9. These are strong. These are like the perfect size. And then I'm going to use probably Nissan flange crimp nuts, because these are from the old body mount bolts. These don't come loose. They're basically like a nylock nut. So you can tighten them to whatever spec and they'll freeze there. But got a bunch of old bolts. These are actually aftermarket. 10mm 1.25, class 8.8. So I got a ton of those. I think I'm going to use 8 of those, 4 of these, 8 of these, and then let's weld all these together and go from there. These are going to be installed in the rail permanently, so I have to take off one of these from each side just to slide them in. I know it's the Titans you don't have to, but the Frontier you can't get into these rails. And then I'll put a bracket on here in the future, so when I'm not carrying the rack, I'll just have a piece of steel plate here with some holes, and it'll be like tie downs, because that won't come out once it's once this rail is bolted back on the truck. That is going to be permanent. So you take out these 2 bolts and you can take the kayak rack off. I was thinking about using 12mm bolts and using I'm thinking on using 12mm bolts, and I could actually use lug nuts, like some extra Nissan lug nuts, and that way, just when you open up the bed cover, you just see like 8 Nissan lug nuts sticking on the rail. That'd be permanent. Like I said, there'd be a plate. It's a little overkill. 12mm is kind of big. It's similar to 1/2 inch bolts. Kind of overkill for this, so kind of heavy. These aren't factory nuts, but factory nuts are like half the size. But I decided to stay with a 10 millimeter. 8 millimeter would actually be enough. So I'm going to stay with 10. Just oversize it. Alright, let's get welded. Okay, this seems to be the perfect bracket. 9 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, 1/8 inch steel with a bend at 4 inches. Probably trim this back a little bit later, depending on where the tube goes. The upright, but let me bend these. Just got a little jig in my press. They're made out of some old scrap angle. Bend it up 90 degrees. There we go. Where's the thing? One Nissan Frontier bracket. I'm going to drill some holes in all the ends so I can weld this all together. So I put a hole in the end of each one of these angle irons so I can actually weld it from the backside. So I tried to weld these little pieces in here. It was kind of a pain in the butt trying to get all this level, so I had a crazy idea using gravity. I think I'm going to weld them upside down. So a block of wood, an 1/8 inch is the right thickness. Put these on top, shove them in there. And in theory, I could just put a little plug weld on each hole, and that'll hold them. And I can flip them over and put them in here and weld them from the other side. And then I took the bolts and then I sanded the cast numbers off the heads. So all these bolts from the hardware store always have cast in, you know, the class specs of the brand or whatever, some sales part numbers stuff. So you want to get rid of those so they sit on there nice and flat and level. I'm trying to get this thing as square as possible. Okay, that actually works really good. I put a little clamp on here and it is tight. I had to actually stick a little rod, poke it through to get it flushed down the end, because it's just the right amount of tension on there. So now I can put a little weld in each hole. In theory, that should be square as it's gonna be. Okay, so I had a little bit of a problem. The small hole didn't work out, so you can see I made the holes bigger because they were too hard to weld with the little hole. It just welded up the hole instead of welding the thing in. So here I just flux welded it. Little spacer's working good. Ideally that spacer would be 3/4 inch wide, 1/8 inch thick. I probably need to find one because it keeps flopping around in there. But clamping the 2x4 to the bench seems to be the perfect setup to get that little thing just right at the end. Like I said, with a bigger hole, I can weld in these little spacers. So this is working good. Here's one that's pretty much done. Let's do one end at a time. So here we go. So start, one end, both ends. Last step, weld on the bolt, and then be ready to bolt into the rail. And then I'm going to buy some 2-inch steel, put a hole in it to bolt on here, so I need to run and go buy some. Unless I could find some in my, I don't think I have any. I bought 1.5 inches, but this is like 1 3/4 inches. You can't buy that, so I'm just going to buy a 2-inch. I have tons of 1/8 inch plate I could cut, but the amount of time it takes to cut all this and make it all look nice and rectangular, it'd be quicker just go buy a piece at our hardware store. Drill a hole. 2 plates, 8 inches long. Drill a hole. That's the 10mm bolts. All 4 brackets. Okay, I got all the pieces almost made here. Got my L's. Got the inside pocket pieces. So here's the almost finished inside. Slides in there perfectly. I just made these, I think they're 9 inches long, no, 8 inches long. I got a hole for the 10mm bolts. These are going to get welded on top. Obviously not in the truck. I just bought this 2-inch steel. This is all 1.5 inches thick. This is 1 inch angle. This is 3/4. Everything else is 1/8 inch. So now, just stuck some bolts in here. I'm gonna have to weld these on top. Idea what that's gonna look like. And then this is gonna get welded on like this. And I think I'm gonna make 2 like this and 2 like this. So there'll be a left rear and a front right, and a right rear and whatever. So there'll be 2 different styles, and obviously the vertical pole will be stuck on there. This is like going over the bed rail. Actually, this is the top of the rail, so it's actually going that way. So I think I'll weld this to this next. Weld this up some more. Then I'm gonna put this on the truck, put this on top of the bed rail, mark it, take it off the truck. I guess, yeah, it'd be tricky. Probably gonna have to take the other one of these off the other side and mark these. I don't know if they're the same on the front and the back, the height. Probably the same, but I need to check that. Sharpie these, and then we'll weld these off the truck. And then I think we're done with the brackets. I can stick the uprights on and finish this thing up. Okay, so I put a piece of plywood in the gap. This is my jig for welding up the angle iron to the flat stock with a bolt in there. I'm going to see if I can put a little bit of weld in here. I don't want to weld the 1/8 inch to the bolt, just the bolt to the 3/4. Oh, hope this will work. Hope this will work. Plan B. Here's a better way. Put a bolt in there instead of a piece of wood. That spaces it off. Give me some room to weld. And look how nice that fits. That bolt's in there. Got my little angle going over the top. I'm gonna have my 1.5 inch tube going up. Just trying to remember now which rail it was. Was it that line or this line? I think it was this line that covers that. But either way, this is actually longer than it needs to be, and you can see that it doesn't hang over. That fits so perfectly. Cool. Okay, so I just tack welded it on. Bolted in the first one. I used the truck as a jig, which I didn't like doing, but I'm really liking the way this fits. It just happens to be exactly right there. That's where the tonneau cover goes, tiger. That's where the rack's going to be. Let's make some more. Okay, I did a little bit of redesign. I'll explain later. But I chopped off 2 inches, made it a little bit smaller. So these were originally, I think 9, the other one's 8. So I just chopped off 2 inches and drilled a new hole. Here's an easier way to weld the tabs on. I just stuck it on the vise and welded it on. I had to make a new one. I shortened everything by 2 inches. Alright, so there we go. Got that one done. Just welded this one, or tacked it. Let's tack this one over here. One more to do. So the reason I had to shorten these by 2 inches was because of this thing. This thing needs to go all the way back there. And in order to be able to store the cargo rack thing, whatever you call that thing. So I usually keep it like right here. And I keep it on this position, and then I fold out and I get maximum bed, and I fold it in and I get a tiny bed, and that ends up working perfect for me because I can hold my groceries, and when I hold big stuff I just fold it out. If I don't need it at all, I just slide it all the way back there, which is my least used storage. But I wouldn't be able to do it with these things because I still would have to take the kayak rack off to slide it back. At least I could take it off and slide it back. Those things now come out. They fit through the hole down there. So now what's the next step? Take it off, weld it up, and see how nicely this fits on here. You gotta see how much room I got left when I put the uprights on. Okay, so I just made my uprights. I think they're 24 inches tall. I'm going to have the crossbar about 22, which is still above the cab height. This is how I got them parallel to each other, since the ground is not, since the truck is not level. I just tacked them in and then put them on the center of the last line, because that's about where the tonneau cover ends. So they're just going to barely touch. Okay, so now I just took them off the truck, left them clamped together, and I had a little weld around all 4 sides. Oh, I actually got to flip it over. I'll weld this side, weld the crack, and I'll be done. This is the second set. There's the first 2 down there. Here it is. The world's first Frontier utilitrack with a tiger cover and utilitrack and even the bed extender. I saved it all. They all fit with room to spare. All special thanks to my Lincoln electric welder, who wouldn't have made this possible. So now I just got to finish out the top part. See, it's a little bit wobbly, but I'm going to connect. I'm going to use these 1-inch bars for now to connect them together. Alright, so I just noticed that this tonneau cover gets wider where it bends. You can see down there I've got space, but so it's not an issue down there, but it is an issue down here. So of course, right here when it bends, just wants to kiss on that post. So to solve that issue, I need to move the post over, but I can't because this thing's in the way. So I could either put this thing all over to the back before I put the cover on. That's always an option. But I've been thinking about this for a while anyways. This thing is so massive, I don't need it this big. I can actually cut off over 2.5 inches or 2 inches and just make a straight cut here and just have one wheel and one wheel, a nut on the wheel. I don't need this 3-bolt design, this little flippy floppy steel to hold a piece of aluminum. Chop off 2.5 inches, that way the post can come over 2 to 2.5 inches, and that'll clear the bend. That makes sense, because this big massive bracket is such a waste of space. The reason I chopped 2 inches off of these, but I didn't mention it earlier, was if I want to be able to push that all over the backmost space, I could take off the rack. These things are going to stay in the truck, but these are going to come out. Well, actually I could take these out, but I need to be able to slide this one and this one off the end. That was one reason I shortened them, but the other reason was if I slid these bumper to bumper, the 2 of them back there, plus the aluminum hook for the tonneau cover, there wasn't enough room for this to go all the way to the back, so I could put the thing in the very back, most space, so I can haul the biggest, largest item. So I think I will do that. The only reason I need to cut them is to move the pole farther back. So if I move the poles what is that, about 2 inches, 2.5 inches? Got a ruler here somewhere. Here's a ruler right here. What the? I just had glasses. Oh yeah, 2 inches is easy. I could even re-drill that hole and make it even shorter. Move that back at least 2 inches. That'd give me 2 inches. That'll solve the little bendy. I didn't realize the tonneau cover gets wider as it bends, and of course the bend just happens to happen right there. And my goal is to keep the foldy whatever rack it's called. I actually like the stupid thing now. So I like it at the rearmost position, so I can have it fold outward and be the biggest bed, and fold inward and be the smallest bed. Those are the two I do the most. But then if I need it to completely out of the way without taking it out of the truck, let's say I'm at a store and I buy something big and I didn't plan for it, I can slide this thing all over the back out of the way. So yeah, I think I'm going to chop these things, bring this pole back before I make the next piece.